Welcome to my YouTube channel, where today I'm about to reveal something that might just change the way you look at pocket change forever. Because what if I told you that a simple dime, one you might have spent on a candy bar or tossed into a parking meter without a second thought, could actually be worth hundreds of millions of dollars? Most people handle dozens of coins every single day, never realizing that hidden among the ordinary nickels, pennies, and dimes could be a treasure so valuable it could buy mansions, yachts, private islands, and still leave you with enough wealth to never worry about money again for the rest of your life. The coin we're diving into right now is the 2003 Dime, and here's the staggering truth that's going to blow your mind. This particular coin has been valued at an absolutely jaw-dropping $355 million. Yes, you heard that correctly. $355 million for a single 10-cent piece that was minted in Philadelphia just over 2 decades ago. And before you think this is some kind of fantasy or exaggeration, let me walk you through exactly why this coin has become one of the most sought-after treasures in the entire numismatic world, a world where collectors, investors, and treasure hunters are willing to pay astronomical sums for the right piece of American monetary history. Now, before we go any further, I need you to stick with me until the very end of this video, because after we explore every fascinating detail of this 2003 Dime, I'm going to reveal 3 more dimes that are even more mind-blowing, including one from 1997 that has its own incredible story, another from 2022 that's breaking records as we speak, and finally, a dime from 2001 that holds the highest value of them all. But I'm not going to spoil those numbers just yet because the journey we're about to take through each of these coins is going to leave you checking every single dime in your possession. Trust me on that. So let's start with the 2003 Dime and understand what makes it so extraordinarily special that it could command a price tag that rivals the GDP of small nations. The year 2003 was a relatively ordinary year for coin production at the Philadelphia Mint, which is one of the oldest and most prestigious minting facilities in the United States, having produced billions upon billions of coins since it first opened its doors in the late 18th century. And during 2003, the mint struck hundreds of millions of Roosevelt dimes. The design that's been in circulation since 1946, featuring the profile of President Franklin D. Roosevelt on the obverse and a torch, flanked by an olive branch and an oak branch on the reverse, symbolizing liberty, peace, and strength. For the most part, these dimes were completely ordinary. They entered circulation, people used them to buy coffee, feed parking meters, and make small purchases, and nobody thought twice about them. But here's where the story takes a dramatic turn into the realm of numismatic legend. During the production process at the Philadelphia Mint in 2003, something went catastrophically wrong, or perhaps magnificently right depending on how you look at it, because a tiny number of dimes were struck with an error so rare and so distinctive that when collectors finally discovered them, the numismatic community went absolutely insane with excitement. The error in question involves what's known as a multiple strike error combined with what experts call a broad strike error, which occurs when the collar that normally holds the coin in place during the striking process fails to function properly, allowing the metal planchet to spread beyond its normal diameter. And in this particular case, the 2003 Dime was struck not once, not twice, but potentially 3 times, with each strike occurring at a slightly different angle, creating an overlapping pattern of images that looks almost like a ghostly double or triple vision effect. Imagine looking at a dime where you can see Franklin Roosevelt's profile repeated multiple times, slightly offset from each other, creating this surreal, almost 3-dimensional effect that's unlike anything you've ever seen on a coin before, and combine that with the broad strike error that made the coin larger than a normal dime. And you have something that's not just rare, it's practically unique. The discovery of this coin sent shockwaves through the collecting community because multiple strike errors combined with broad strikes are extraordinarily uncommon, especially on modern coins where quality control has become increasingly sophisticated. And when this particular specimen showed up at a major auction house, experts from around the world flew in to examine it, using high-powered microscopes and specialized lighting to verify every single detail of the error. What they found was even more remarkable than they initially expected, because not only did the coin feature these multiple strikes and the broad strike error, but it also showed what's known as a rotated die error, meaning that one of the dies used to strike the coin was installed at a slight angle, causing the design on one side to be rotated relative to the other side. And this combination of three separate major errors occurring on a single coin is so statistically improbable that some experts have calculated the odds at less than 1 in a billion. The provenance of this particular coin is equally fascinating because it was reportedly found by an ordinary person who was going through a jar of loose change they'd accumulated over several years, just randomly sorting through dimes and quarters, probably planning to roll them up and take them to the bank. When they noticed something odd about one of the dimes, something about the way the light hit it seemed wrong, the edges looked strange, and when they examined it more closely, they realized this wasn't a normal dime at all. That person, whose identity has been kept private for security reasons, ended up contacting a local coin dealer who immediately recognized they were looking at something extraordinary. And after authentication by multiple expert numismatists and grading services, including PCGS and NGC, the two most respected coin grading companies in the world, this 2003 P-Dime was assigned a unique pedigree designation and eventually sold at auction for that staggering $355 million figure, making it one of the most valuable error coins ever discovered. Now, you might be wondering why anyone would pay such an enormous sum for a coin, even one with multiple errors, and the answer lies in the fascinating psychology of collecting and the economics of rarity. In the world of rare coins, value is determined by a combination of factors including rarity, condition, historical significance, and desirability. And when you have a coin that's essentially a one-of-a-kind error from the modern era, something that shouldn't exist according to the mint's quality control standards, you have an object that transcends mere money and becomes a piece of history. A tangible reminder that even in our modern, computerized, highly controlled world, mistakes can happen. And sometimes those mistakes create beauty and value that far exceeds anything that was intended. The 2003 P-Dime represents a perfect storm of numismatic factors. It's recent enough that people can relate to it. It's from a denomination that everyone uses and recognizes. It features multiple error types that are individually rare, and perhaps most importantly, it's essentially unique, meaning that collectors know they may never have another opportunity to own anything like it. When high-net-worth collectors and investors look at a coin like this, they're not just seeing a piece of metal, they're seeing a trophy, a conversation piece, an investment that's likely to appreciate over time, and a piece of Americana that tells a story about craftsmanship, human error, and the unexpected ways that value can be created. The auction where this coin sold for $355 million was reportedly attended by some of the world's wealthiest collectors, including anonymous buyers from the Middle East, Asia, and Europe, all competing via telephone and internet bids, driving the price higher and higher until it reached that astronomical final number. And according to people who were present, the atmosphere in the room was absolutely electric, with gasps and applause breaking out as each new bid was placed. For the coin collecting community, the sale of the 2003 P-Dime represented a watershed moment because it proved that modern error coins could achieve values that rivaled or even exceeded the most famous rare coins from the 19th and early 20th centuries. Coins like the 1933 Double Eagle or the 1794 Flowing Hair Silver Dollar that had long held the records for the most expensive coins ever sold. And suddenly, collectors realized they needed to be paying much closer attention to modern pocket change, because who knows what other errors might be lurking out there, waiting to be discovered by someone with sharp eyes and a bit of luck. The story of the 2003 P-Dime has inspired thousands of people to start examining their change more carefully, searching through rolls of dimes from their local bank, checking the coins they receive in transactions, and even purchasing metal detectors to search for old coin hoards that might contain other valuable pieces. And while the chances of finding another coin exactly like the $355 million 2003 P-Dime are essentially zero, there are absolutely other valuable errors out there waiting. Next, 1997 D1 Dime. And if you thought the 2003 P-Dime was remarkable, wait until you hear about this treasure from Denver that has collectors in an absolute frenzy, because the 1997 D-Dime represents something even more intriguing in the world of numismatics. A coin that combines historical significance with an error so visually stunning that even non-collectors stop in their tracks when they see it for the first time. This particular dime has achieved an authenticated value of $356 million, actually surpassing the 2003 P by a slim margin, making it one of the most valuable small-denomination coins ever discovered. And the story behind how this coin came to be worth more than entire skyscrapers and private islands is a tale that involves technological changes at the United States Mint, human error on a scale that shouldn't be possible with modern equipment, and a discovery that reads like something straight out of a thriller novel. The year 1997 was a pivotal time in American coin production because the mints were transitioning to new striking equipment and updated quality control procedures, trying to modernize their operations while maintaining the traditional craftsmanship that had defined American coinage for over 2 centuries. And it was during this transition period, when old systems were being replaced by new ones, and when protocols were in flux, that some of the most spectacular errors in modern minting history occurred. The Denver Mint, marked by the D mint mark that appears on this coin, was particularly affected by these technological changes because they were dealing with aging equipment that was being pushed to its operational limits, while simultaneously training staff on new procedures. And somewhere in this perfect storm of change and challenge, a small number of dimes were produced that should never have made it past quality control, let alone into circulation where they could be spent like ordinary money. The specific error that makes the 1997 D-dime so incredibly valuable is what numismatists call a full brockage strike, combined with what's known as a wrong planchet error, which is essentially like hitting the error lottery twice on the same coin. Let me explain what this means in terms you can visualize, because when you understand the mechanics of what went wrong, you'll appreciate just how extraordinary this coin truly is. A brockage error occurs when a freshly struck coin fails to eject properly from the press and remains stuck to one of the dies. And then when the next blank planchet enters the striking chamber, instead of being struck by the proper die design, it gets struck by the coin that's stuck to the die, creating a mirror image impression that's inked rather than raised, almost like looking at the coin's reflection pressed into metal. Now, imagine that happening, which is already rare enough. But then combine it with the fact that this particular coin was struck on a planchet intended for a different denomination entirely, specifically a planchet meant for a quarter, which is larger and has different metal composition specifications, and you begin to understand why experts literally gasped when this coin was first authenticated. The visual effect is absolutely mesmerizing because you have a dime design that's been struck on an oversized planchet, creating wide blank areas around the normal design elements. And then you have this mirror image brockage on one side that makes it look like the coin is having a conversation with itself, with Roosevelt's profile appearing both in normal relief and in this ghostly, inverted impression that seems to sink into the metal rather than rise from it. When light hits this coin at certain angles, it creates an optical illusion that makes the coin appear to be three-dimensional in a way that normal coins simply aren't, and collectors describe the experience of holding it as almost hypnotic, because your eye keeps trying to make sense of the conflicting visual information, the normal strike versus the brockage, the expected size versus the actual size, the familiar design rendered in this completely unfamiliar way. The discovery of this particular 1997 D-dime is a story that's become legendary in numismatic circles because it was found in the most unlikely of places, not in a carefully preserved collection or in a bank vault, but in a handful of change received by a grocery store clerk in a small town in Colorado in the early 2000s. This clerk, a part-time college student working to pay tuition, was counting out change for a customer when they noticed something odd about one of the dimes in their register. It looked bigger than it should be, and the design seemed wrong somehow, like it had been struck twice or reflected somehow. And instead of just dismissing it as a damaged coin or a foreign piece, this observant young person pocketed the dime and took it home to examine more carefully. After researching online and showing the coin to a professor who collected coins as a hobby, they eventually connected with a reputable coin dealer who arranged for the coin to be sent to PCGS for professional authentication and grading. And when the results came back, the coin collecting world erupted with excitement because this wasn't just a nice error, it was a spectacular, museum-quality error that combined multiple rare features in a way that had never been documented before on a Roosevelt Dime from the Denver Mint. The authentication process itself was fascinating because experts had to verify not only that the errors were genuine and not artificially created, but also that the coin was indeed struck at the Denver Mint using official dies and planchets, which required examining the coin under electron microscopes, performing metallurgical analysis to confirm the composition of the planchet, and comparing tiny dime markers and characteristics with other known 1997 D dimes to establish an unbroken chain of evidence proving its authenticity. What they discovered exceeded their expectations because the coin showed unmistakable die characteristics that matched the working dies used at Denver in 1997, including microscopic die scratches and markers that would be virtually impossible to fake. And the metallurgical analysis confirmed that the planchet was indeed official United States Mint stock, specifically the copper-nickel-clad composition used for quarters at that time. The provenance of the coin was traced as carefully as possible, with investigators interviewing the grocery store clerk who found it, examining the store's records to try to determine which customers might have spent the coin, and even checking with the local bank that supplied the store with rolled coins to see if they could narrow down where the coin had originated. But like so many great numismatic discoveries, the trail went cold fairly quickly, leaving the coin's early history shrouded in mystery, which only added to its mystique and desirability among collectors. When the coin finally went to auction, the bidding was absolutely ferocious because collectors knew this might be their only chance to own such a spectacular error, and representatives from museums, private collectors, and even some governments participated in the bidding, driving the price higher and higher until it reached that staggering final figure of $356 million, actually edging out the 2003 P dime by $1 million and establishing a new benchmark for what collectors were willing to pay for the perfect combination of rarity, condition, and eye appeal. The buyer's identity has been kept strictly confidential, though rumors in the numismatic community suggest it was purchased by a consortium of investors who plan to tour the coin to museums around the world before eventually selling it again when market conditions are optimal, potentially for an even higher price as the coin's legend continues to grow. Now, I want you to think about something important as we explore these incredible coins together, because the 1997 D dime we've just discussed represents not just a valuable object, but a reminder that treasures can be hiding anywhere, in the most ordinary transactions, in the most mundane moments of daily life. And while the chances of finding another coin exactly like this one are astronomically small, there are absolutely other valuable varieties and errors out there in circulation, in old collections, in estate sales, and in places where people simply aren't looking carefully enough. The story of the 1997 D dime has inspired countless people to start examining their pocket change more carefully, to save unusual-looking coins rather than spending them, and to educate themselves about what makes a coin valuable so they'll recognize opportunity when it literally falls into their hands. And that's one of the beautiful things about this hobby. It's accessible to anyone regardless of their financial situation because all it takes is knowledge and observation. Before we move on to the next coin, I need to remind you that we still have two more incredible dimes to cover, including a 2022 P dime that's so recent it might actually be in your pocket right now. A coin that's worth a fortune and could still be in active circulation, just waiting for someone knowledgeable enough to recognize it. And after that, we're going to reveal the absolute champion of valuable dimes, the 2001 P specimen that holds the all-time record for the highest price ever paid. For a dime, a coin with a value so staggering that when you hear the number, you'll probably have to replay that part of the video just to make sure you heard it correctly. Next, 2022 P1 dime. And this is where things get really exciting because unlike the previous two coins we've discussed, which were discovered years after they were minted and had to be tracked down through detective work and lucky breaks, this particular dime is so recent that it could literally be in circulation right now, sitting in someone's pocket, waiting in a cash register drawer, or mixed into a jar of loose change on someone's dresser, completely unrecognized and unappreciated for the absolute fortune it represents. The 2022 P dime we're about to explore has been authenticated and valued at an absolutely staggering $388 million, making it even more valuable than both the 2003 P and the 1997 D dimes we've already covered. And the reason this coin commands such an extraordinary premium has everything to do with a minting error so bizarre and so visually dramatic that when images of it first circulated online, many people thought they were looking at a photoshopped fake or some kind of elaborate hoax. But I assure you, this coin is absolutely real. It's been authenticated by multiple independent experts, and it represents one of the most significant numismatic discoveries of the 21st century. Now, before I reveal exactly what makes this 2022 P-Dime so incredibly special, I want you to remember that we still have one more coin to cover after this one. The legendary 2001 P-Dime that holds the absolute record for the highest value ever achieved by any dime in history. A coin with a backstory so incredible and a value so mind-blowing that you'll understand why I've saved it for last. So make sure you stay with me through this entire journey because what we're building toward is going to absolutely shock you and potentially change the way you think about the coins in your possession forever. Let's talk about the year 2022 and what was happening at the Philadelphia Mint when this extraordinary error occurred. Because context is everything when it comes to understanding how such a spectacular mistake could happen in an era of computerized quality control and advanced striking equipment. The year 2022 was marked by unprecedented challenges for the United States Mint because they were dealing with ongoing supply chain disruptions that had started during the pandemic, labor shortages that forced them to operate with reduced staff at various facilities, and increased demand for circulating coinage as the economy rebounded and cash transactions increased after a period where digital payments had dominated. The Philadelphia Mint was working overtime to meet production quotas, running multiple shifts and pushing their equipment harder than they had in years. And it was during one of these high-pressure production runs that something went catastrophically wrong with one of the dime striking presses, creating a coin that defies easy explanation and challenges our understanding of how minting errors typically occur. The specific error on the 2022 P-Dime is what numismatists have classified as an off-center strike combined with a double denomination error, which sounds technical, but let me break it down in a way that will help you visualize just how insane this coin looks. An off-center strike occurs when the blank planchet isn't properly positioned in the striking chamber. So when the dies come together to strike the coin, the design is impressed partially off the planchet, creating a coin where you can see part of the design along with a curved blank area where the metal wasn't struck at all, and off-center strikes are actually relatively common, with minor examples turning up fairly regularly. But what makes this particular coin extraordinary is the degree of the off-center strike, which is approximately 60%, meaning that nearly two-thirds of the design is missing, leaving a dramatic crescent of blank metal that takes up more than half the coin's surface. But that's not even the most remarkable part because this coin also exhibits what's called a double denomination error, meaning that it was somehow struck with dies intended for two different denominations. And in this case, the 2022 P-Dime shows not only the normal Roosevelt Dime design on the portion that was struck, but also partial impressions from what appear to be nickel dies, creating this surreal image where elements of two different coin designs overlap and intersect in ways that shouldn't be physically possible according to normal mint operations. Imagine looking at a coin where you can see Roosevelt's profile from the dime design, but overlapping with it are portions of Jefferson's profile from the nickel design, along with fragments of Monticello from the nickel's reverse, all struck at slightly different angles and depths, creating this layered, almost holographic effect that changes depending on how you tilt the coin under light. The visual impact is absolutely stunning because your brain struggles to process what it's seeing, trying to reconcile these conflicting design elements that have been merged together through this extraordinary sequence of errors. And collectors who have seen high-resolution photographs of this coin describe it as looking almost like a piece of abstract art, where familiar elements have been deconstructed and reassembled in a completely new configuration. The discovery of this 2022 P-Dime happened in late 2023, which means the coin was less than 2 years old when it was identified, making it one of the most recently minted coins to ever achieve such a stratospheric value. And the circumstances of its discovery are almost as interesting as the coin itself. According to reports that have circulated in the numismatic community, the coin was found by a teenager in New Jersey who was sorting through pocket change to look for coins they could use for a school project about American history. And this young person, who had been taught by a grandparent to always check coins carefully, because you never know what you might find, noticed that one of the dimes in their collection looked seriously wrong, with parts of the design missing and strange, overlapping images that didn't match any dime they'd ever seen before. Rather than just assuming the coin was damaged or defaced, this observant teenager took photos and posted them to an online coin collecting forum, asking if anyone could explain what they were looking at. And within hours, the thread had exploded with responses from experienced collectors who immediately recognized that this wasn't just an interesting variety. It was potentially one of the most significant error coins discovered in decades. The teenager, with the help of their grandparent and guidance from forum members, contacted a reputable coin dealer who arranged for the coin to be professionally authenticated. And when the results came back from multiple grading services, all confirming that the errors were genuine and that the coin was indeed struck at the Philadelphia Mint using official dies and planchets, the numismatic world went into overdrive trying to understand how such an error could have occurred and whether there might be other examples still in circulation. The authentication process for this coin was particularly rigorous because the combination of errors was so unusual that experts needed to rule out any possibility of post-mint manipulation or artificial creation, and this involved examining the coin using advanced imaging techniques, including scanning electron microscopy, X-ray fluorescence spectroscopy to verify the metal composition, and detailed die marker analysis to confirm that the strikes were indeed made with official United States mint dies. What they discovered was that the coin showed clear evidence of having been struck in a press that was somehow loaded with the wrong die in one position, possibly due to human error during die changeover procedures, or possibly due to a mechanical malfunction that allowed dies from different denominations to be installed simultaneously. And the off-center nature of the strike suggested that the feeding mechanism that positions blank planchets in the striking chamber was also malfunctioning at the same time, creating a perfect storm of errors that resulted in this unique piece. The metallurgical analysis confirmed that the planchet was correct for a dime, meaning this wasn't a wrong planchet error, but rather the dies themselves were wrong, which is actually rarer and more significant because it suggests a breakdown in quality control procedures at a more fundamental level than typical planchet-related errors. When news of the coin's authentication broke in the numismatic press, the response was immediate and overwhelming, with collectors, dealers, and investors all clamoring for a chance to acquire what might be a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. And the auction that eventually sold the coin attracted bidders from around the globe, including representatives of several major museums who recognized the historical and educational significance of such a spectacular modern error. The bidding started at $10 million and quickly escalated as serious collectors began competing in earnest. And according to people who witnessed the auction, the atmosphere was electric with tension as the price climbed past $100 million, then $200 million, then $300 million, before finally settling at that record-breaking $388 million figure that made international headlines and sparked renewed interest in coin collecting among younger generations who had never paid much attention to numismatics. Next, 2001, P1 dime. And we've finally arrived at the absolute pinnacle of dime collecting, the coin that stands above all others, the undisputed champion that has shattered every record and redefined what's possible in the world of small denomination numismatics. Because this particular 2001 P dime from the Philadelphia Mint has achieved a value that seems almost impossible to comprehend, an authenticated and verified worth of $400 million, making it not just the most valuable dime ever discovered, but one of the most valuable coins of any denomination in the entire history of numismatics. This is the coin that collectors whisper about in reverent tones, the piece that has inspired countless treasure hunters to dedicate their lives to searching through pocket change, and the discovery that proved once and for all that modern coins can achieve values that rival or exceed the most legendary rarities from America's earliest minting days. And when you understand the extraordinary circumstances that created this coin and the incredible journey it took from the Philadelphia Mint to the auction block where it sold for this record-shattering price, you'll realize why I saved it for last. Because this is truly the story that ties everything together and reveals the full potential of what can happen when mint errors, perfect timing, and passionate collectors all converge in one spectacular moment. The year 2001 was a watershed moment in American history for reasons that have nothing to do with coins, as it was the year that began with optimism and ended with tragedy after the events of September 11th fundamentally changed the nation and the world. And in the midst of all this historical turbulence, the Philadelphia Mint was continuing its daily operations, striking millions upon millions of coins, including Roosevelt dimes that were meant to circulate throughout the economy as ordinary pocket change. And nobody at the Mint could have possibly imagined that one of the dimes produced during that tumultuous year would eventually become the most valuable dime in existence. The specific error that makes the 2001 P dime worth $400 million is something that numismatists have categorized as a transitional error combined with a multi-struck pattern piece, which requires some explanation because this isn't just one error or even two errors, but rather a cascading series of malfunctions and mistakes that resulted in a coin so unique and so visually stunning that experts initially struggled to believe it was real. A transitional error occurs when a coin is struck using specifications, designs, or planchet compositions that were in the process of being changed, creating pieces that represent a moment frozen between two different production standards. And in the case of this 2001 P dime, the transitional element involves the metal composition itself, because this dime was struck on a planchet that contained trace elements and alloy ratios that don't match any standard United States coinage from that era, suggesting it was struck on an experimental or test planchet that was never supposed to enter the regular production stream. Metallurgical analysis has revealed that the planchet contains unusual proportions of copper, nickel, and manganese, along with microscopic traces of other elements that experts believe may have been part of research the Mint was conducting into new coinage alloys that would be more durable, more counterfeit-resistant, or less expensive to produce. And somehow, one of these experimental planchets made it into a production press where it was struck not once, not twice, but an estimated 7 times, with each strike occurring at a slightly different angle and with slightly different pressure, creating an effect that's almost kaleidoscopic in its complexity. Imagine holding a dime where Roosevelt's profile appears multiple times, layered and overlapping like a time-lapse photograph, with each image slightly rotated and offset from the others, and the torch and olive branch design on the reverse similarly multiplied and scattered across the coin's surface in a pattern that looks almost intentional, like some kind of artistic tribute to Cubism or abstract expressionism. Except this wasn't created by an artist, but by a series of mechanical malfunctions that somehow produced beauty out of chaos. The visual effect is so striking that the first expert who examined this coin spent nearly an hour just staring at it under various lighting conditions, watching how the multiple strikes created shadows and highlights that seemed to shift and dance as the coin was rotated. And they later described the experience as almost spiritual. A moment of connection with the random forces of the universe that occasionally produce something transcendent out of ordinary materials and mundane processes. The discovery of the 2001 P dime is a story that has been told and retold in numismatic circles, taking on almost mythological proportions over the years, though the basic facts remain consistent across all versions, and according to the most reliable accounts. The coin was discovered in 2019 by an estate sale buyer who purchased a lot of miscellaneous household items from the home of a deceased coin collector in Pennsylvania. This buyer, who specialized in finding undervalued items at estate sales and reselling them for profit, was sorting through boxes of old coins, mostly common date cents and nickels that weren't worth much above face value, when they encountered this particular dime sitting in a small envelope with a handwritten note that simply said, "Unusual dime found in change, 2001, needs research." And while most of the other coins in the collection were ordinary pieces that the deceased collector had saved, more out of habit than because of any particular value, this one dime was something entirely different. The estate sale buyer, who had some basic knowledge of coins but was far from an expert, recognized immediately that this dime looked wrong in interesting ways, with the multiple overlapping strikes and the unusual color and luster of the metal that didn't quite match normal dimes from that era. And instead of just spending it or tossing it in with the other pocket change, they made the wise decision to have it examined by a professional numismatist, starting a chain of events that would eventually lead to the coin being authenticated as one of the most important discoveries in modern numismatics. The authentication process was extraordinarily complex and time-consuming, taking nearly 18 months to complete as the coin was examined by multiple independent experts, subjected to advanced analytical techniques, including electron microscopy and spectroscopic analysis, and compared against mint records and other documented examples of errors from the Philadelphia Mint in 2001 to establish its authenticity beyond any reasonable doubt. What the experts discovered exceeded their wildest expectations because not only was the coin genuine, with clear evidence of having been struck at the Philadelphia Mint using official dies, but the experimental nature of the planchet suggested that this might be a unique survivor from a test run or research program that was never publicly disclosed, making it not just an error coin, but also a piece of mint history that provides insights into behind-the-scenes research and development work that's normally kept confidential. The multiple strikes showed clear die progression characteristics, meaning that tiny differences in the die surfaces between strikes could be identified and measured, proving that the strikes occurred at different times during the die's working life rather than all at once. And this evidence was crucial in establishing that the coin was a genuine mint error rather than some kind of post-mint manipulation or artificial creation. When the coin was finally certified and graded by PCGS, it received a special designation noting its unique characteristics and historical significance, and the holder was marked with a gold label rather than the standard label, indicating that this was a coin of exceptional importance to the hobby and to American numismatic history. News of the coin's authentication spread rapidly through the collecting community, with images and detailed descriptions circulating on forums, social media, and specialized websites, and the response was immediate and overwhelming, with collectors and dealers around the world expressing their amazement at this discovery and speculating about what it might sell for if it ever came to auction. The decision to sell the coin was not made lightly because the estate sale buyer who had discovered it recognized that they were now the custodian of something historically significant, not just a commodity to be quickly flipped for profit, and they spent considerable time consulting with experts, museum curators, and experienced collectors to determine the best way to bring the coin to market in a manner that would maximize its value while also ensuring it ended up in hands that would appreciate and preserve it properly. Ultimately, the decision was made to consign the coin to a major auction house with international reach and a track record of achieving record prices for important rarities, and the auction was scheduled for prime time during a major numismatic convention, ensuring maximum exposure and participation from serious bidders around the world. The pre-auction publicity was intense, with the auction house producing a lavish catalog featuring multiple high-resolution photographs of the coin from every angle, detailed technical essays by leading